In the previous hearing, I asked Mr. Plotkin of Melvin Capital whether his firm was ever naked short selling on GameStop stock, and he said, no, the systems won't even allow that. That would be impossible for us to do. Yet, according to a report from Bloomberg Government, which analyzed the SEC data, $359 million of GameStop shares failed to deliver or be covered, suggesting many of the shares had been borrowed more than once. I think Mr. Plotkin's testimony was truthful, but can you explain what's happening when so many shares fail to deliver?
Sure. Thank you for your question. The current regulation only requires broker-dealers to have a reasonable, or institutional investors have a reasonable ground to believe the security can be borrowed, so that it can be delivered on the delivery date. So it's a reasonable belief. Now, I don't know about Mr. Plotkin's system, although it sounded like a pretty good system when he said it, which is he says unless his firm has identified, in fact, the security and to have it deliverable, it doesn't even allow them to short a position. But that's not actually the law, as I understand it. As I understand it, it's a reasonable belief, and that people can have a lot of reasonable beliefs. And we have massive failures to deliver of GameStop stock in January. So not only do we have a short position that exceeds about 140% of the available float at the time, but then subsequently we have a massive failure to deliver those securities at the time of delivery. So, and I'm sure, as Mr. Piwawar said earlier, the SEC is looking carefully at this, and I would expect their report to provide us with a lot more information. But as of right now, the publicly available information certainly indicates that there's a very high likelihood of some abusive short selling by somebody.
All right, so let me ask you this. So, I mean, Mr. Luchtenmeyer talked about sales 140% of existing shares. I mean, how does that happen?
Well, in the securities lending business, it happens because somebody lends a security to somebody who lends it to somebody else to lends it to somebody else. It goes by the technical name of rehypothecation. And what it does is you have this cascade effect where you, in fact, have the same security lent out multiple times. And then arguably you have short sellers having a reasonable belief at a period in time that that's the security that they could reasonably deliver at the delivery date. The problem is that that security has now moved to somebody else who has a reasonable belief that that very same security is the one he can deliver or she can deliver. And so the way the system works now, it's almost a house of cards. And I agree with several of the witnesses who said one of the things that needs to be understood and disclosed at a much more granular level is not only the activities of the short sellers, but we need to have greater disclosure and granular knowledge of what's happening in the securities lending market.